couple of 1-2s.
1-2, 1-2.
Keep going.
1-2, 1-2.
Keep going.
1-2, 1-2, 1-2. 3-4, 5-6. 1-2, 1-2. 3-4, 5-6. 7-8. 1-2.
Hello and welcome to the Royal Blue Podcast. It's the Monday show. We are live and I am your host, Ian Kroll. Joining me in the Royal Blue studio today, a little bit later than usual, but to talk all things Everton, we have Chris Beasley. Chris, how are things? All good?
Yeah, I don't know. So I'm still here, aren't I? I wasn't blown into the Mersey on Saturday morning.
You survived.
Yeah.
Where were you? New Brighton?
A bit further up. It's I was by the Egremont ferry, so yeah, I'm still in Wallasey, but yeah, a bit further along, yeah. And a few people have commented actually, you know, my hair, a bit like Ian, I've been known to have a bit of product in my hair, and it wasn't actually wasn't moving much in all that wind, even if you couldn't hear what I was saying.
No, I mean, if people don't know what we're speaking about, then you need to go to the Royal Blue YouTube channel.
Gone viral.
Find the video of Chris basically trying to confirm that the Merseyside derby was off.
Yeah.
And you can't hear a word he's saying, basically, because of the wind. Have you watched it?
I have, yeah.
1-0 to Storm Dara.
Well, also on the Royal Blue podcast today, we've got the long-awaited return of Conor O'Neill. Conor, it's been a while. How are things?
All good, all good. I thought you were going to talk about your hair product then when we were talking about there if you haven't seen it. Like
Maybe
the best hair products to recommend for Christmas. Well,
I mean, we can turn this into a fashion, you know,
Vidal Sassoon.
whatever, hair product podcast if you want, if that's what you want to do.
well, I'm going a bit grey, so anything that could help with that would be much
Wow.
appreciated.
How old are you?
It's watching the Blues, I think.
It probably is. Yeah. Probably a good job the game was postponed on Saturday then, wasn't it?
Just a little.
Okay, well, today's agenda, easy for me to say, despite obviously no game for Everton at the weekend because of the postponement due to adverse weather conditions. There is a little bit of news knocking around. So we are obviously going to discuss the decision to postpone the Merseyside derby. We'll also look at the Peterborough FA Cup game and the tie and the news that game has now been changed to Thursday night. And the news as well that Manchester United have parted ways with their sporting director, Dan Ashworth, after only 5 months in charge at the club, and what that could mean potentially for Everton moving forward, if anything at all. As always, give this video a thumbs up, drop us a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. As mentioned, we are live, so just looking at the stream now, looking to see if any questions coming in. There are a few, so as always, get your questions in, interact with the podcast, interact with the show, and I will read them out to Conor and Chris as we go along. I think we might as well just get straight into it, Chris. We're going to try and keep it a relatively short one today. We are busy. I feel like it was a weird weekend.
Yeah.
To be honest, obviously with the game, I had a bit of a cabin fever, because obviously you're looking forward to going the game and then you end up staying in and stuff like that, and the weather wasn't great. First off, in your eyes, right decision to postpone the game, obviously due to the adverse weather conditions?
Yeah, and I was surprised it took so long, to be honest. I saw that both Cardiff and Plymouth, whose forecast was for their winds weren't as strong, supposedly, as they were here in Liverpool. They were both called off on the Friday, and I guess because of the magnitude of the game, because of the size of the fixture, everyone wants to get it on, as it's been well publicised. You know, people have come from far and wide to watch this game, including the 15-year-old lad from Sydney. At least he got to see Everton beat his dad's team, Wolves, on Wednesday, but obviously people like him missing out on the historic fixture. So I think there was every effort to try and get the game on, but I was woken up by the winds myself early on Saturday morning. As soon as I was out and about, having to ferry other members of the Beasley household around. It seemed obvious, you couldn't be playing football in these sort of conditions. It probably actually went off a bit later on, but on the one hand, Everton, I guess, would have been keen to build on the momentum of that 4-0 win against Wolves. It would have been interesting to see the Liverpool's understudy goalkeeper Kelleher being faced in those conditions, although Everton always haven't made the most of having to face Liverpool understudy keepers in the past. I'm thinking Brad Jones at Wembley, but the conditions would have been a great sort of leveller, but then you just don't know what it would have ended up like. I mean, it couldn't have been a great game for either side in those conditions. So make the most of it, and there's probably going to be pros and cons in terms of who's actually available when the game does end up finally being played. But let's hope, as I think you said, actually fit an occasion under the lights second time round.
Yeah, obviously we don't know the date or the timing of the next derby, but more than likely it should be Goodison Park under the lights. Kind of just sticking with the decision, was there any frustration from your part that the decision wasn't made any earlier, or did they have to give it, ample time to make that decision, basically?
No, not at all. I think they've obviously left it probably as late as they could to call that off, because obviously, I know what Chris was saying there in terms, Cardiff and Plymouth were called off, but you really don't know, do you? Because we've seen these things before where, there's weather warnings and it doesn't quite hit Liverpool or doesn't quite hit Merseyside in the way that some predict. Obviously the weather's not always, the weather forecast isn't always correct, is it? So I suspect the club and the authorities will probably wanted to get to at least Saturday morning to, see if what was predicted to come true. Unfortunately, it had, and someone who lives, within a stone's throw of Goodison Park, I really wasn't surprised it was off, because it really was, let's just say, very, very windy around our part, and obviously there was plenty of rain as well in that time. So yeah, I wasn't surprised it was off. And look, I think the big thing in all this is safety's paramount, isn't it? You've got to ensure that anyone who goes to that football match can get there in the safest way possible. And I think it was quite clear, wasn't it, that was not going to be not possible at all, given I think the trains were up the wall, weren't they? There'd been stuff on the track and stuff like that. And, the road conditions probably weren't ideal either for people to be driving to Goodison from the game. So yeah, I think the right call was made, and although disappointing, it's one of them, isn't it? I think we'll probably come back next year and try and do it all again.
At least the decision wasn't made like half an hour, 40 minutes before kick-off, like it was a number of years ago. I can't remember the year, but was it Palace?
96. Oh, no, sorry, I was going to talk about the derby. Yeah, you're right, the Palace one. It's about 10 years ago, with Rick Wheat, 2014, I think.
Became notorious on social media.
Yeah, I was inside Goodison that night, yeah. But sorry, I was just thinking about the derby, because the last derby to get called off in 1996 at Anfield, I think that was less than an hour before kick-off. So, yeah.
Rain deluge, wasn't it? Brought that one to a halt.
I remember the Palace one. What year was it?
Which one? Palace 2014.
I remember actually being on Pinehurst Avenue.
Yeah.
So up there, and then you obviously thankfully social media was about then, and you get the updates, and then I think I went home and watched United against Arsenal. A lot of debate, obviously after the decision, Chris, regarding who benefits from this game not taking place the most. You can see Liverpool fans saying pros and cons, Everton fans saying pros and cons. Who does this benefit most that this game didn't take place?
Possibly Liverpool, given that the results midweek. I know for a positive thing for Everton, as we've already mentioned, you've got the possibility of having a better atmosphere under the lights, but given that obviously McAllister was suspended as well for that one, wasn't he? So he missed out on the opportunity to go around kicking everyone like he did last April, spent most of the derby doing that. But yeah, they'll all argue different points, but given that Everton victories unfortunately haven't been they've been few and far between, so to go into it off the back of a 4-0 win, I'm sure Everton will be disappointed on that score, and they've got most of their players available at the moment. Bro, you're just coming back as well, so possibly Everton, and maybe if the game had gone ahead, like I said, the conditions would have been a bit of a leveler anyway, but everyone's going to probably have their own opinions on it. said, as we've already been through, at least it's hopefully going to be a more fitting occasion. And you know, a 12:30 for the last, as much as we're all looking forward to it as a historical event, 12:30 for what is probably going to be the last ever Merseyside derby at Goodison Park was always a bit of a dampener, really.
What was the name of the fan? Who was
Mackenzie.
So we've got a comment here from Daniel Reel. I came from Oz. I was in Ireland and flew into Liverpool Saturday morning. I found it was off as we were boarding the flight. We had to abort our landing in Liverpool, and it was bloody scary. Safety first. I mean, you can't argue with it, can you? I guess at the end of the day, but as we've obviously just mentioned there, there's a chance now that, you know, the last ever Goodison Merseyside derby will be under the lights, very similar to, you know, last April when Everton beat Liverpool 2-0. I did have a couple of Liverpool fans in me Twitter comments following me tweet regarding, you know, the potential that it could be under the lights, and they quite rightly did say that, you know, our record against Liverpool, even under the lights, isn't, you know, 100%. I think over the past 20 odd years, I think there's been like 5, and they've won 3 and we've won 2. One last April, and I think the Gosling one, if you're going to count that one as well. So, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that Everton are definitely going to win the game, does it?
No, I mean, and look, I think that's the great debate, isn't it, of, you know, who benefits most from Saturday's performance. The reality is we don't know, do we? Because, you know, Liverpool obviously had a disappointing result at Newcastle on the Wednesday before the game, but prior to that they've been pretty flawless, hadn't they? You know, you think that week where they beat City and Real Madrid, and, you know, they're the top of the league for a reason. So, you know, you can't forget what they've done to put themselves in such a commanding position in the Premier League this season. But obviously, you know, like Chris said there, Everton really haven't had much momentum after this season, and to get a 4-0 win in the manner which they did on Wednesday night against Wolves, you would like to think that, you know, back at Goodison, back in front of a full house, the extra significance of it being the last probably Merseyside derby we'll see at Goodison Park would give Everton that bit of extra incentive to get all 3 points. So, you know, we don't know, do we? It'll be one of life's mysteries, I think, now for moving forward, and we'll never really know the answer. And by the time, the other thing is now, by the time we come to play it, who knows what position the two clubs will find themselves in, because I think reading Ian Doyle's piece at the weekend, it's February, I think, now is probably the earliest that could happen, given Liverpool's involvement in the League Cup, and, you know, they got the FA Cup haven't been in January, and the Champions League and the Premier League games already scheduled for midweek in January. So, you know, could be a long while off before we see the two clubs face off at Goodison. So, you know, it's just a case of wait and see, isn't it?
I mean, the dates that you spoke of there in February, if that's the Champions League playoff places, like Liverpool obviously aren't going to be in, that they're going to qualify automatically, aren't they? So I guess...
I think that's the earliest. I think it wasn't that. It wasn't so much that when it could. That's when it could be. I think that was the earliest. Liverpool probably got a free week, I think, provided that they overcome Southampton next week in the League Cup, which I think most of us probably think they will. Then obviously the next round of that will be in, the semi-finals will be in January, and so etc. So yeah, I think it could be a while before we see the two teams face off at Goodison.
I mean, it's impossible to, you know, suggest or even predict what would be the best, you know, time of the year, which is obviously going to be next year now, to play this rescheduled game, Chris. I know we play Liverpool again in April. Yeah. Would you rather get it out the way early, like we've just suggested in February there, or would you rather it be pushed back, thinking that Everton might have acquired enough points to survive, but then you could even, if you push it back too far, could you get bumped by Southampton, the home Southampton game?
Well, yeah, we don't want to be going into that territory, do we? Like, we were talking about this last year, weren't we? And I was like, you know, Everton could be, because obviously until Everton did win those 3 games in a week in April, obviously with the derby in the middle of it, there was all talk that it might have been right at the end of the season, and I was like, Everton playing to stay up and Liverpool going for the title in the derby. I don't think anybody wanted that, and you don't want that this season. So yeah, hopefully it won't be too late. But if what Connor obviously is saying there from February onwards, at least let's hope it gives an opportunity for a Dan Friedkin takeover, and who knows, if some January signings before then. Let's hope that's a positive. But yeah, Dad, I wouldn't want it being pushed back too far into the business end of the season.
As someone who thinks they are the worst 2 games of the season, and I'm not even just crying it in from an Everton perspective with that statement, I just think that the 2 worst games of the season, playing them in like the same month of April would just be hell on earth. I mean,
Yeah.
that is just like no. They need to find a way to not, and certainly not. You certainly don't want it shoehorned in for like the final week of the season. So play Southampton on like the Saturday and then Liverpool on the Tuesday or the Wednesday before the final game on the Sunday.
But they always seem to...
You certainly don't want it to be the last game. It could be Goodison's last ever game. I think that's another thing. That
With Liverpool going for the title as well.
Liverpool going for the title, Liverpool going for as we mentioned last week, the opportunity to win the most Goodison derbies as well for all time, over 130 years.
On Goodison's last ever night as hosting Premier League football.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I think we need to hope that the club work some magic between then and ensure that it's around February, March.
I'm sure the broadcasts...
they'd love it.
They'd love that, wouldn't they? They'd be pushing
they
for
truly
it.
love it, but like I say, I think for any fan who certainly of my thinking of the worst 2 games of the season would hate the prospects of that.
No, I mean, obviously tongue-in-cheek, Chris, but Everton remain undefeated against Liverpool in 2024 now. When was the last time that happened in a year? Can you remember?
Off the top of my head. Yeah.
No.
I mean, we've got the wrong people on, haven't we, for that today?
Only
Because
Gav.
the one man who might have known is unfortunately not with us.
He's done a Christmas quiz, Gav. I
he?
noticed that. Oh, it's a few Everton questions in there. There's a few posers. So, yeah, they give that one a look at online. Yeah, Gav certainly showing what he's good at there.
Well, I think he's off on his jollies, isn't he? Is he going to Malaga or... Not Malaga, Cyprus or something
Right,
like
he's
that?
taking the answers with him. Keep us all in suspense.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure if he's watching, if he's listening, hello, Gav.
Have a nice holiday.
Yeah. What do you think this means then, Connor, for the dreaded December period? You know, now that we picked up picked up 3 points against Wolves, a couple of results did go our way. Obviously, Ipswich got beat at the weekend. I know Leicester picked up points, and there's a massive game tonight, isn't there? Wolves and West Ham. We've only really now got 3 games left of the December period. So
4.
Sorry, I meant of the difficult one. If you're not going to, obviously, I know Forest at the end.
They
of
just
the
won
month
Old
as well.
Trafford.
What I'm saying is, you know, the Champions League teams, we were all worried about that, and at least Forest at home as well. And we got a good record against Forest. Well, the question then, what do you make of it? So, like, now that this game has been postponed.
I think we're none of the wiser, are we, really? I think until we play the games and we see what Everton do and what Everton come up with, but we're none of the wiser because, you know, obviously this weekend's Arsenal, you know, on paper, probably the trickiest game we've got this month, I think it's safe to say. Obviously, their home form's really, really good, isn't it? Our form at the Emirates is not so good. So, yeah, I think the big thing for me is, like, it's performances. I know results matter, and we want to see Everton pick up points, and, you know, they've got to pick up points to try and get above par from this run. But you look at the performance, you know, the other night, for instance, against Wolves, which I thought was encouraging, it was good. You want to see more of that than the performance that we witnessed at Old Trafford, where after a bright start, their conceding just fell apart. Because if they start with that, if that's the mentality for some of these games in December, then it's going to be a long month. Because, you know, you would, sitting here now, Everton are probably unlikely to keep 4 clean sheets in a row in the games coming up, given what they're up against. So while they've got a chance to score, and they've probably also got a chance they're going to concede. So you don't want to see them fall apart. I think that's important. That's one thing that you want to see moving forward, is a much more kind of collective approach rather than, you know, like I say, falling apart. But I think it's tough. I think it's tough to make a judgment call on what we now see, because, you know, most going into last Wednesday's game against Wolves feared the worst, and, you know, everyone was talking about, well, what happens if we've got 4 behind or this happens. As it turned out, we were pretty impressive and, you know, got come away with 3 points, scored 4 goals. So, yeah, I think we're probably none of the wiser, none better off, but only time will tell, and I think this weekend will be a good indication, because, like I say, you know, Everton will lose games of football in the Premier League. That's a given. You know, they're not good enough to go undefeated, but it's the manner in which you lose. And, you know, me and Chris spoke about this before off camera, where, you know, like the performance you see at Man United, where they fall apart and start making bad individual mistakes. That's just not acceptable, and that can't become the norm. So that's why I'm most interested and intrigued by this weekend, to see how we perform and what type of performance we put in.
Absolutely. Just speaking about Arsenal, so preview pods this week. Me and Tony Scott will be doing a look ahead pod on Wednesday, and then I'm off Thursday, Friday, so I'm hoping Chris, who is by himself, is going to be able to do a pod on Friday as well to do a preview pod for Arsenal. But you and Joe travelling down to London as well for that as well?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think on that Derby question about going undefeated. 2021 when they won the Derby behind closed doors at Anfield, was the next one that autumn? Was that a draw at Goodison? I should think off the top of my head. Maybe it was 2021.
Yeah, because usually
When no one was there.
we'll have got like a winner at some point, and then we'll have definitely got a draw. So it's probably not as long
No,
as you
it's not
think.
2021, is it? Because they won the Carlo at Anfield, but then lost at home under Rafford in December.
Oh, so that's not
So,
good
yeah.
then. I must have been thinking the year before, the autumn before, when it was the draw at Goodison. So yeah, must have gone further back. Sorry. Yeah, Arsenal, another one where they've only won that one during COVID when it was an empty stadium, and see a bit of an unintentional good segue there. That all worked out for me, despite getting the stat wrong. It's obviously it's a notoriously, and we talk about Everton's record at Old Trafford, quite rightly so. But away at Arsenal, they've not won there. Well, not actually. They've only won, as I say, behind closed doors when was it Charlton Cross and Bert Leno on goal. In lockdown, so never won there in front of fans. I mean, they probably should have won in the snow when Stephen Pienaar scored that goal at Landon Donovan's debut. But it's not been a happy hunting ground for the Blues. So it's another one a bit like Old Trafford. It goes back, unfortunately, much longer than before Sean Dyche was at the club to get a result there. I think it was actually Graham Stewart and Andrei Kanchelskis in the 95-96 season, last time they won at all in front of fans at Arsenal in any way, obviously at Highbury back then. So, Arsenal again doing well this season, Mikel Arteta, and I think we speaking to Michael Ball earlier, and he pointed out about with their set pieces, in the past, you wouldn't really necessarily associate Arsenal with that sort of strength in their armoury, but they're a different beast these days under Arteta.
Without a doubt, obviously, maybe not as strong as what you would think. So obviously dropping points against Fulham. So we'll see how we go on Saturday. But as mentioned, preview shows this week, Wednesday, Friday, and follow Chris and Joe's written content on the Liverpool Echo website as well. Moving on then, FA Cup, Connor, third round. Peterborough United, first reaction to that, and then just your reaction to the fact that it's been moved to a Thursday night, because I know a lot of unhappiness on social media in regards to that.
Yeah, I think obviously in terms of the tie itself, it could be one to remember for the Ashley Young family, couldn't it? I think
Certainly.
If his lads is in the Peterborough squad that night and he's in the blue squad, and
Put a bit of pressure on the manager there, hasn't he, as well?
Yeah, because I don't think his lads have actually played that much, to be fair, when I looked at the tie.
27 minutes in a EFL trophy game, so
but what a story it would be if a dad and lad come up against each other in the FA Cup. I think that
Put
would
him
be,
on the bench first. See how it goes.
that would be quite the story, wouldn't it? But I think the big thing from this cup tie is the date, isn't it, which is being played that Thursday night. Obviously, a date that Everton are used to, given last year's travel to Selhurst Park on a Thursday night, which I think we can safely say is one of the worst games of football probably we've all watched. Unfortunately, Chris and Joe were there, having to enjoy it live in front of their own.
Yeah, it was very wet
in their own eyes, and obviously one of the most ridiculous refereeing decisions of all time. I think we ever seen McCarthy was sent off, wasn't he? But no, I think it ruins it, doesn't it? Because you would have thought, Saturday or a Sunday 3:00, and obviously Liverpool are playing Saturday, so that would have meant Everton would have had to have played maybe on the Sunday. But you think Sunday 3:00, there's probably been thousands of Peterborough fans would have made the journey down. But it would have been a real classic cup type feel to it in that respect. Now on a Thursday night, they'll probably still bring a couple of thousand, but probably not as many because of work and commitments and other commitments and stuff like that. So it's disappointing in that aspect, and we always talk about the FA Cup and and showing that it holds its prestige and it holds what it is, how special it is. And when you see the FA making decisions like this, you just think they're doing the best to kill it off, aren't they? Because the magic of it just disappears with decisions like this. And I thought it's a ridiculous call, and I know Peter put a statement out, and I fully support that statement and fully understand where they're coming from, because it's absolutely ludicrous. And even for Everton fans as well, Thursday night, it's, possibly the last ever FA Cup tie at Goodison Park, and shoehorns in on a Thursday night. Again, it's just so subdued, isn't it? And so, just a bit of deflation around it. I think it's very good in the sense of for Everton, they're playing a team who everyone should expect them to beat in Peterborough at home, which is, Chris spoke about the draw before it was done, and we're quite keen for Everton to get a home tie against, someone who they had the chance of beating. I think it's safe to say, and they've certainly got that. But yeah, the whole when it's going to be played just doesn't sit right with me, and I think for a cup competition that a lot of people are trying to protect and ensure that continues, it's just a ridiculous call by the FA.
Is there an official reason why it's been moved to a Thursday? I mean, I know these ties can be played across a number of days, but it's only on the BBC iPlayer, as far as I'm aware, isn't it?
I don't know why it couldn't necessarily be Sunday.
Liverpool are Saturday, obviously, at home.
But
so
still play Sunday, though.
No,
you still play Sunday 3 o'clock, couldn't you?
Because as you say, it's bad enough for the Evertonians, but it's for the Peterborough fans to really feel for. I believe it's their first ever trip to Goodison Park, so they're getting in there, they're sneaking in before the grand old lady closes its gates for the final time. They're all excited about that. A plum draw for them. Premier League team away from home in this historic Goodison Park final season. That long trip from the east of England for them, and as they've pointed out, there's no trains that will get them there or back that night. They'll have to go on the coaches. So it's really disappointing for them. They'd have been made up getting Everton away in this last season. Not even going beyond the family fortunes and what goes on in the Young household. For the whole club there, it was a massive moment for them, and just to be sort of that gloss taken off it by it being switched to a Thursday night. On the one hand, we're all made up that the derby might now be a midweek under the lights. I mean, Peterborough didn't want this; they wanted it at the weekend, and it just seems silly, really.
I just think as well with the romance of the cup, isn't it? I know it's hard, but like say, Goodison's potential last FA Cup tie, and it's shoehorned in on a Thursday, and obviously there's a lot of Blue supporters of a certain age who have a lot of fond and happy memories, but in Everton in the FA Cup, you think of 66, 84, 95, some of probably the best days some people have had support in the football club involved, the FA Cup. So for the last possible tie to be shoehorned in on a Thursday night, and it's only going to be, it's not even like it's on BBC One or anything, it's on the iPlayer, it's just very disparaging.
Yeah, I think from a personal point of view as well, I'm desperate. I've got 2 young kids, desperate to get them to Goodison Park in some capacity, and I thought even before the game was the tie was drawn, I thought if we're at home there and it's a weekend, I might be able to get them tickets to go. Obviously, no chance now. We past the bedtime, to be honest. I mean, past my bedtime as well. Let's try and look at the positives, though, Chris. That just looking at the dates, I don't think there's any suggestion now, even though with Peterborough putting a statement out that it's going to change. So it's a Thursday.
Yeah.
Then we play Villa
on the following
on the Wednesday. So can you look at it as a positive that it's a little bit more rest time in between games, I guess? Yeah,
hopefully it means it'll be more or less a full strength lineup, I'd like to think, from Everton.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, it was an interesting one. I'm trying to think back to his cup policy last season. He played João Virginia, didn't he, in all the FA Cup games? But generally he goes stronger. He's not one of those. That was one of the big disappointments for me, actually, all the changes he made against Southampton in the Carabao Cup. I thought that was unnecessary, because in the past he has treated these competitions with a certain amount of respect. So, I'd like to see a strong Everton lineup out there. And, got to go for the FA Cup, because if Everton aren't going for trophies, and even in, you say, this season, quite rightly so, just getting into the new stadium intact as a Premier League club, that is the... That's got to be the main aim for the season. It's got to be the benchmark for success. But it's not like a cup run hampers you from that. I'm not having that, because Everton aren't in any other competitions. It can only be a good thing the further you go in the cup competition. And maybe, obviously, I'm not old enough to remember 66, like Connor says, and I was around in 84, but I'm afraid I don't remember that one either. But
well, with his grey hair, he might be able to remember it.
He's 10, everyone, he's 29. Tough paper round. But you and I both remember 95, and of course, that was before the FA Cup sort of declined. I think the start of the rot was when Manchester United pulled out. They were in that inaugural World Club competition. For those who are younger, they went out to Brazil. It's not like the format, anything like the format they had now. And they were actually the defending holders. They'd won the treble in '99, and they didn't defend the trophy. I think that's where it started, and it was a gradual thing. Obviously, the importance of the Champions League qualification for the bigger clubs, but. as sad it is, I mean, we talk about Everton and winning trophies and what Everton were, and only Manchester United and Liverpool have won trophies across a longer period than Everton. Everton have won major trophies across 9 different decades. Only Liverpool and Manchester United can beat that. So it's really sort of tragic now that in the way that football is and the way that Everton have declined, league championships just it's not a sensible aspiration, unfortunately, for Everton now. So if they're not doing that, winning cups, that has to be their raison d'etre. That has to be what Everton is about as a club at their size and of their magnitude and of their heritage. If Everton aren't trying at least to win cup competitions, well, what's the point in even existing? Just they've got to be going for it. So it's a big thing for me, and I don't like. I've outlined those reasons why I think that the FA Cup has declined in importance, but not for me. Any sort of cup competition, I think Everton have got to be going for it, and that's what part of the reason why I was so disappointed in his selection policy for Southampton, the Carabao Cup. So hopefully go strong against Peterborough. Okay, it's only one step up the ladder, but just try and go as far as you can. It can only help; it can't hinder, in my eyes.
If he makes changes for this, wholesale changes, he deserves all the backlash he gets, because it's just ridiculous. Because, like Chris says, it's a genuine chance to win a trophy. A club that's been starved of silverware since 1995. You can't just be tossing opportunities away willy-nilly. And I think that's certainly been one of my biggest gripes in recent years. Not so much with Sean Dyche, but previous Everton managers, the way they've just tossed away cup ties. I mean, I think me and Chris are still raging at Frank Lampard and the bloody Bournemouth debacle all them years ago.
There was no way back for Frank after that.
No, which put him under, and I know a few other managers have done similar. So yeah, I think there's no excuse, and there's no reason why Sean Dyche should be making wholesale changes for this cup tie. And ultimately, was it 6 games Everton could play and win the FA Cup? Yeah. I mean, what is 6 games in this day and age? I mean, they've only got Premier League games left anyway because of the League Cups. It's not like we've got a massive fixture list.
Yeah, it's not like back in the day we had unlimited replays. Yeah, it is. So, yeah.
If you remember back to our prediction show, Joe Thomas said that we were going to win the FA Cup.
He veers from one extreme to another, Joe.
Fair enough.
I mean, I like the way no one said we were going to win the League Cup, given we're just cursed in that competition.
I think I said we were going to win the League Cup.
Well,
I don't know why. Obviously, don't know what I was drinking or on at the time, but yeah, okay. Well, no, I completely agree. I think if he doesn't play, I'm not preempting anything. Obviously, I think he will, depending on what's going on at the time. I think he will play a strong team, and who knows? The takeover might have happened by then. Fingers crossed.
Hope so. Yeah.
Let's move on then. Let's just talk about something not really Everton related, but I just thought it'd be interesting because it sparked a bit of a debate on social media. So Dan Ashworth, Manchester United sporting director, has left. Yeah. Crazy, really, when you think about the pursuit that Manchester United went on for Dan Ashworth, and it seems like he's just had turmoil in the club from day one. I think the reason why I'm bringing this up is, obviously our director of football, his contract is up at the end of the year. The manager's contract is up at the end of the year. We're obviously, days away, hopefully, from the takeover news. Would Dan Ashworth be not even a viable option, just a person who you would consider, who could come into the club and be a sporting director, be a director of football?
I don't really know a lot about him or what's going on at United. All I can say is that they... obviously, with Ruben Amorim coming in, obviously it's a new start for them. But I mean, I was at, obviously, as you know, the Everton game at Manchester United the previous weekend, and there's a lot of unhappiness still there in terms of the way the club is being run. We all know for years and years they've not liked the Glazers and all what they're about. But with Jim Ratcliffe coming in, supposedly one of their own, a local lad done good. Mancunian, and he was getting as much as the Glazers when I was out. I mean, I was in the thick of it. I was there amongst all the red smoke because it was supposed to be a joint protest because he was against the ticket prices, and I did see one fella in an Everton shirt there, but it did very much seem United dominated. And yeah, there's a lot of unrest at their club, and given obviously they've got all the on-the-field problems, but off the field as well, in terms of the way the club's being run. So yeah, I just think it's a lot of greater resources than Everton, and they were still able to win the FA Cup this year before they sacked Erik ten Hag. But yeah, it's not a happy camp, and I think obviously the result at the weekend kind of shows. I mean, it really sort of emphasised just how bad that was for Everton going there. I mean, they maybe just think, just want to play Everton every week, because all of a sudden they beat Everton 4-0 and everyone's thinking, everything's all right now. He's turned the corner. They've had the bounce with the new manager. Good times ahead, but it's quickly, a couple of sobering results going down to Arsenal, and then with Forest beating them at Old Trafford. Obviously there's a lot not right there. So I don't know a lot about him personally, so I wouldn't like to say either way. But it's not a good situation that they've got there at Manchester United. I just wonder what will happen in the months ahead.
It's almost like it's like a backward situation now that this new manager has come in. It's almost like he's had to move away. Like, I don't know whether he was the one who was backing Amorim.
He didn't want Amorim, did he?
Southgate, he wanted Southgate, didn't he?
So maybe that's why you suspect there's been clear issues, because ultimately you probably got a sporting director who's working with a manager who he didn't want, and he wanted somewhere else. So that probably
we've had that before, haven't we?
Probably tells the story, doesn't it, why it's gone wrong or why it's going wrong. And I think as well, reading some of the Manchester Evening News' coverage around this yesterday, there's issues over transfers and who brought what player in and stuff like that. And obviously, Everton are accused of wasting a lot of money. And I don't want to turn this into a Man United podcast, but my God, they've wasted some money on some below par players as well. And certainly this summer, by the looks of it, they wasted a lot more money on players who don't look anywhere near good enough to get them back within the top 4 picture. So yeah, I think the big overriding thing I thought yesterday was that by all accounts he didn't seem too keen on Amorim. And that probably tells you why he's probably heading for the X's, because let's face it, you can't have a sporting director in there who didn't want that manager he's now got to work with.
Well, I'll come off the fence then now. If anyone thought that Gareth Southgate was the man to turn Manchester United round, don't want him coming anywhere near Everton. There you go. Can't get more emphatic than that.
Emphatic from Chris there. Someone saying Ashworth is another Steve Walsh. A few comments coming in. I mean,
it's also worth pointing out as well. I mean,
he's done well at Brighton and the FA and stuff like that, hasn't he?
He doesn't stick around long, though, does he? And he's always looking to go something like, you look at, Brighton, Newcastle, Man United. He basically forced his way out of Brighton to get to Newcastle, forced his way out of Newcastle to get to Man United. First chance to go anywhere different or somewhere.
More money, isn't it? Be more money.
He tends to jump ship. So
if you just turn it back around to us a little bit, obviously, if things go to plan, when I say things go to plan, results pick up, Dyche would stay to the end of the season. Obviously, you'd expect Thelwell to stay to the end of the season, but in the meantime, the new owners have come in, the Friedkins have come in, and then say, let's just speculate here that both of them leave, the contracts aren't renewed. The most important decision that the Friedkins need to make is who is the sporting director or director of football, whatever way you wanna label it. In a way, for me, Chris, that decision is more important than who the new manager is going to be, because the infrastructure behind the club is more important than kind of who would be the head coach on a day-to-day basis. If you bring in a manager, if you bring in a head coach who's successful, Everton are in a position really where they can fend off big clubs who come after the manager at the time. If we were to bring in a manager who's successful, let's fingers crossed that is the case. But at least then, if we've got the infrastructure, the director of football, the team behind building the club and appointing the manager, like Brighton have done. Yeah. Basically, they've lost a couple of managers over the years, but they've managed to just replace it. Bang, we've got a new one in straight away. They know what the philosophy of the club. The director of football is the most important decision the Friedkins are ever going to make. Would you agree with that?
I get where you're coming from. That's an ideal example, isn't it, with Brighton? That the fact that the head coaches, as they would be, wouldn't they? Because they probably wouldn't be managers, I guess, at Brighton, can come and go, and it's not a problem, is it? Whether it's Potter, De Zerbi, and they've just had that smooth transition, and Hurtsela this season, because can you imagine, as brilliantly as Fabian Hurtsela is doing at Brighton, he couldn't have come into Everton and done anything, that sort of job, because it's totally different circumstances. So they're the actual ideal model, aren't they, in terms of at getting it right. And, this is a club, I'm talking about, 5 minutes ago, I was talking about all the things that Everton had done in the past. Brighton had never won a major trophy. Yeah, that makes there's no good Everton saying, if you know your history now and saying we did this, that and the other. It's all about, that makes no relevance in 2024. So, yeah, Brighton are getting the right thing. I totally understand where you're coming from. But for me, the manager's always the most important individual at any football club in my eyes. But I totally understand where you're coming from with that point in terms of the importance for the Friedkin group of actually allowing a director of football, if indeed you are going to have one, because the jury is still very much out. And whether it's not really been a success at Everton, the 3 different individuals they've had there, you can't say it's been a success because it's just been downward spiral in terms of the fortunes. So if you are going to have a director of football, you have to let them, as you say, build that proper structure in place to be the director of football in the way that they need to operate, because we know Marcel Brands was being undermined from the start in terms of what was going on with Farhad Moshiri and the managerial appointments, and then people coming in who he didn't want and then pursuing other targets. I mean, he tells that tale about I was in Mikel Arteta's house and trying to get him for Everton, and obviously Moshiri goes in another direction. So yeah, if done properly, I totally understand where you're coming from in terms of that and getting the structure right, because that's what Everton have failed to do under the Farhad Moshiri. But for me, a manager's always the most important person at a football club. But I totally understand what you mean in terms of getting that right. So you can actually go through managers, and it's not necessarily the end of the world, because you actually bring somebody in who has a similar philosophy or can take it on from the last guy. Whereas that's totally the opposite. It's what happened at Everton. You've had veered from one extreme to another in terms of the managers and their skill set. So yeah,
slight difference of opinion then between me and Chris. Connor, what side of the fence are you going to sit on?
I'm actually going to sit on the fence because I agree in
a
way
with
with both. Yeah, I think I get with Chris because I think the head coach has got to have some sort of power, haven't he? Because if the head coach has got no power or the manager's got no power, you suspect that makes things very difficult in the dressing room, because the first time of trouble, people are just going to be like, well, you're going to go and be replaced anyway, so what does it really matter? But I think it all comes down to when the Friedkins come in, they've got to have an approach and a kind of an idea of what they want Everton to look like. What do they want to make Everton Football Club? What ways do they want to go with this? Because I think the problem we've seen under the Moshiri tenure is that we've just gone from one extreme to the other, haven't we? And back again, and then we go to this side again, and we've gone from we're going to throw loads of money at it and bring loads of players in to let's start trying to box clever with transfers and let's try and do this, and you just end up at like what we've witnessed over the last 4 years of just basically a team that's been thrown together from, is it 5 different managers and 3 directors of football, I think is the team is the team some weeks. So that's never, and within that you've got 5 different managers in there, by the way, as well. Like no they're not all like it's like the Brighton train where it's like everyone plays the same way. You've got 5 managers in there who all play very different ways, and so I think it's all on the Friedkins really, this, because I think we need to see what they want to do and what their aim is to do, and what they want Everton to look like. And then from there, you can then start to build a kind of, almost like a case study of like, well, he'd be the perfect director of football, sport director. He'd be the perfect head coach or manager. We're going to target players of ages between like 21 and 25 who we might accept that they're doing well and they're going to come to us. And in 2 to 3 years, we could then maybe sell them on to higher clubs, like what Brighton have done with, Casado and people like that, where they bring them in 2 or 3 years and then they sell them on for a high price, and they accept that they're going to do that. The Friedkins might turn around and say, well, that's what we want to do. We want to scour the wares, get some good young talent in, and accept that in 2 to 3 years, if they blossom to their full potential, we will shake hands and say thanks, and off you go somewhere else. They might turn around and say, well, we don't want to do that. We want to get players who are 25 to 28 who are proven quality, and we want to keep them and get the best their best years out of them. So I think it's all on the Friedkins, isn't it? And that's why I know we harp on about it time and time again, and it's probably the most talked sentence and talked about issue. The takeover just needs completing as soon as possible, because once that is, we can then start to get a bit of clarity and a bit of understanding, and try and understand what the Friedkins want to do and what they want to achieve. Because at the minute, we don't have a clue, do we? Because we don't even know if they're going to actually end up owning the football club. Touch wood, they do, but we don't know, do we? Because it's just still ongoing. The process is still ongoing.
I think me and Chris, obviously, we're both right in a sense. I just think, from my point of view, you could bring in this fantastic young manager who builds himself up, develops with the club, might even looking into the stars here, goes and wins us a trophy. But we consider ourselves a big club in the Everton bubble because I think we are. We know we are. But outside, if a bigger club, whether it was a domestic or European club, came in for that said manager, I just think they'd just go. So I just think that's why the most important thing, the infrastructure, got to be in place.
Recruitment, don't you? Because you look at United now. I mean, not to harp on United, but they've got a manager who likes to play three at the back. But how many of their backline can play three at the back? So that's, again, a process that's going to take a long time to overhaul because...
You need recruitment. You need to buy players who will fit that system,
and like I say, now they've got a manager who likes to play 3-4-3. But, how many defenders can play 3-4-3? Probably not many without isolating them or exposing them. So, again, you've got to have an idea of what you want. And I think as well, Everton fans need to realise, and this isn't being patronising, but it's going to take time. Like, I don't think anyone expects the Fredkins to come in and wave a magic wand and within 2 months we'll be winning games of football all the time and we'll get to the summer transfer window and we'll have loads of players and bring loads of players in. It'll take time, and you look at the last 5 years, bad decisions have led to us being where we are now. You might have 5 years of good decisions, but we could be 5 years away from being back to that top 6, top 7 competing team. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight.
Obviously, this is probably a really bad example because they've had quality players there for a while now, but you only have to look at the neighbours across the park, Liverpool. They've obviously lost the manager, but they've had a complete reshuffle or a restructure of their hierarchy, and then they brought in a head coach rather than a manager. And don't get me wrong, it could all end up going south for them, but it's been a very seamless, smooth transition for them since Klopp has left, and I think that is because they've had certain things in place that has enabled that.
It goes back to that way, doesn't it? Recruitment, they've got good players.
What I think
We've got the best defenders in the world, or one of the best defenders in the world, one of the best forwards in the world. That's a big. It's like any manager, isn't it? If you're, it's like Ronald Koeman, isn't it? Koeman done really well in his first season at Everton, but yet he inherited Romelu Lukaku at the time, one of the most prolific goal scorers in European football. So it's a big help, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think I certainly don't want to be singing the Liverpool's praises for too much on the Royal Blue podcast, but I think what they've done very well, their owners, is that it's what I'd like to see from the Freaking Group, is they've left the football decisions to football people, and that's been the problem under Moshiri, just getting involved, messing about all the time and undermining football people. With the John Henry and Werner, they've very much just concentrated on the business side of things. And I know they've had their ups and downs with that, and obviously there's been times when a lot of the fans are frustrated over various issues. But if you look at where the club was at when they came in there, obviously it was that infamous derby. The last time Everton won at Goodison previous to the last derby was 2010 when the new owners first came in there, Henry and Werner. If you look at what the club was like that and the way they've grown in terms of the expansion of Anfield and the way I know there was the whole European Super League debacle, but they've left the football and decisions to the footballing people, and that's what I want to see from the Freakins. We know that they're successful business people. They've had the fingers burnt a bit at Roma with what's gone on this year. Hopefully they've learned from those mistakes without Roma really being, I don't think, in any sort of genuine danger of their Serie A status being under threat, and then appoint the right people, bring the right infrastructure in place, and then they can stick to the business side of things. And then whoever is the director of football and who is the head coach / manager, let them get on with their jobs. That's what I'd like to see, rather than sort of the hands-on approach, people meddling in things that they don't really understand.
I think I'm going to sound really stupid here, but it's a decision from the Freakins that should be made really simple and not overcomplicated. From the outside looking in, based on what I've seen at Roma, they don't really know too much about the football in Wales. So, if I was the Freakins, which I'm not, and I haven't got all
$10 billion.
Yeah, I would first of all try and have an idea of how you want to try and play the game, and they probably don't think like that. But what I would do is, you know, if they've gone to watch a football match anywhere in the world, let's just say, for example, let's just use Barcelona as an example, who likes possession, keep hold of the ball, tiki-taka football. If that's how the Friedkins have watched the match and say that's how we want to play, then they employ people, footballing people, on how to go about, how to, you know, replicate how Barcelona play, their infrastructure. That's just a simple way of putting it for me. I don't know if you agree, but as we know, these things can be overcomplicated, and you know, it takes time.
We'll probably just spoil the show here for when the Friedkins takeover gets completed.
Yeah, but what you don't do is you don't go from Ronald Koeman to Sam Allardyce to Marco Silva to Carlo Ancelotti
to Rafa Benitez.
Yeah. Trot them all out, but you just don't, that's what you don't do. So
that's what I'm saying before. About, like, just to finish, we've got a squad that's been compiled by 3 directors of football, 5 or 6 managers who all play contrasting ways of football and believe football should be played in varying ways. So it's a mess, and I think we've seen that mess with our own eyes over the last few years, but hopefully better times are ahead.
Yeah, just a few questions or comments before we leave. So, Emma EFC, the director of football and manager need to be on the same wavelength. It's clear that's not currently the case. I agree with that, but I think the director of football should be employing the manager. Basically, at the end of the day, that's how it works for me.
To be fair to Farewell and Dyche, they do seem to be more joined up
I agree
than any of the other previous managers and directors. Well, whatever we think of those two, either as individuals or as a combination, they do at least they seem to be like they're trying to work together.
A bit harsh, and they are a lot more aligned than what people probably perceive.
No, I don't think she's slagging them off as such. I just think that's what she's saying we need.
Yeah.
Because in the past, I don't think it's been the case.
It hasn't been.
Just finishing off with this question from Andy Whitty. The panel often referenced Dyche finishing above Forest last season. Dyche's limitations and tenure are summed up by Forest's league position and winning away at United and at Anfield. Do you agree with that? Obviously, Forest were the big winner. United, and they've obviously beat Liverpool as well in the season.
I don't often go on about them finishing above Forest? But yeah, Forest have certainly come on leaps and bounds, haven't they? He was another one who came out of a meeting with Farhad Moshiri thinking he got the Everton job, Nuno Espirito Santo. Before they got Rafael Benitez, it might have been spared all of that, although he obviously subsequently didn't do very well at Tottenham. I don't know, with Forest have, for whatever reason, they've really clicked, haven't they? They've really kicked on.
They've had a lot of investment though as well.
Yeah, they did, because they spent a lot of money before all that, and it didn't really sort of work. Obviously, they stayed up both seasons, but they weren't really that successful. Maybe that's more damning about Cooper then. I don't know, but it's. I don't think certainly Forest have kicked on loads, haven't they, compared to Everton, but you could say the same about Brighton. That's what we do go on about, to be fair. I don't think we go on about... we reference Forest a lot. We reference the fact that they would have been level on points with Brighton last season, and Brighton have obviously kicked on lows, but again, because they spent a lot over the summer. But I think it's a bit harsh just to say, well, you should have done what Forest have done, because for whatever reason, it's just clicked for them this season.
Okay, then we'll finish off. Final thoughts, Connor. Hopefully the takeover news this week.
Yeah, I think that's all everyone's waiting for now, isn't it? That green light that the takeover is going to happen. Everton will have some much needed new owners, because, like I said earlier, I think we're crying out for it now, aren't we, to be complete and to get a bit of clarity and to get people in who can start making decisions and come up with a new way in which Everton will look, I think, moving forward.
Well, it was touted as mid-December. So it's going to be Friday when I'm off, Friday the 13th. Perfect day for it, do you think?
Wow. I think that the party line has always been before Christmas Day. So yeah, I think I'll have Tony saying all I want for Christmas is a Texan billionaire.
God help you if it is Friday by yourself. Joe off, I'm off.
Yeah, no, that's another thing he makes a habit of, wasn't he?
It's definitely going to happen Friday.
On the day all the directors resigned, Joe was eating jelly and ice cream at his baby's birthday party. So yeah,
disgusting.
There's every chance.
Okay, well, we will leave it there for today's Monday show. as mentioned, they'll be back with Tony Scott on Wednesday, and hopefully Chris will be able to do a podcast on Friday to look ahead to the Arsenal game. Please remember to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Most importantly, enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week. I've been Ian Kroll, joined by Chris Beasley and Conor O'Neill, and this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.